to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As customary, we'll take a moment of silence.
I'll do my best.
Okay, I'd like to announce this meeting is being televised and recorded by Whitman Hanson Cable Access. I would seek a motion to approve bill and payroll warrants.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. I'd seek a motion to accept correspondence in the read file.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Public forum. If anyone out there would like to speak on something that is not on the agenda, seeing none, we'll move on. Seek a motion for approval of meeting minutes for open session November 14th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Seek a motion to approve meeting minutes for open session November 15th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
One abstention.
4, 1 abstention. COVID-19 update provided by Chief Clancy.
Good evening. Just a quick update based upon the information I got recently because of the Thanksgiving break. This past week we had 14 positive cases out of 345 tests performed, and we dropped to a positivity rate of 4.06%. The past 2 weeks we have dropped into the teens. Let's hope that trend continues throughout the holiday season. I will forward you all the latest BioBot report once I receive it. There was a break there due to the Thanksgiving holiday. Once I get the latest one in, I'll forward it to you. And I just want to remind everybody that tomorrow at the town hall from 3 to 7, there will be a COVID vaccine booster clinic. The link to sign up is on the town website, but also I've been informed in a conversation this evening with the COVID coordinator that she will accept walk-ins tomorrow night if there's anyone who wants to walk in between 3 and 7 to get their shot tomorrow. And I'll keep you updated as stuff changes.
Okay, if nothing for the chairman's report this evening, I just hope everyone had a safe and healthy, happy Thanksgiving. We need to wait till 7:10 to start our scheduled hearings this evening. Tonight we'll be hearing from 4 retailers for proposed marijuana facilities. At 7:10, we'll first be hearing from Brian Wall from the company Flower and Soul. At 7:30, we'll be hearing from attorney Sean Riley from representing Berkeley Botanicals. At 7:50, we'll be hearing from Valerio Romano, representing Stories. And at 8:10, Peter DeAgostino, representing the Mitchell Cannabis Company.
Valerio?
Yes.
Valerio.
Is that the name of Dan?
Valeria, okay. That's the new name of it?
No, that's how you pronounce the third attorney Romano's name.
All right. All right.
When I jump into new business, we can knock that out.
All right.
Ethics training revision.
Jumping into new business, ethics training revision.
Okay, this is a fait accompli. I brought it to the board in order to seek approval to adopt the new centralized ethics training being offered by the state. And today the town clerk informed me she already sent in an acceptance. So unless you have an objection, I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay, and we all received that in our packet with a detailed explanation. We'll save the FY24 budget. Let's set the December meeting schedule. I believe we need to meet on the 13th.
Yeah, that's already scheduled, yeah. Mr. Chairman, I remind the board that the search committee has met with some candidates, is meeting with the additional candidates Thursday, and will then be referring applicants for the town administrator position to the full board. So you may want to give some thought to when in December you would like to do that.
27th?
A couple days after Christmas could be Tough for people.
Tough.
Yeah.
About
What's the public hearing, the 13th?
the 13th and the 20th then?
Sure.
Does that work for everyone?
20th, sure.
Okay, we'll set December 13th and December 20th.
Thank you.
Before we start the hearings, I'd just like to, I believe it's the intention of the board just to hear presentations this evening. No votes will be taking this evening. I would expect votes to be taken on at our December 13th meeting. One of these clocks has to say 7:10 by now.
807, 77. Let's see.
First,
I would mention, I received an email, and I believe the board also received copies of two emails from a Mr. Scogland who lives at Auburn Street in the senior development there. Apparently, the folks have attempted to involve our various elected representatives at the state and federal level to participate in the discussion with a small group of people from that development who are seeking to have sidewalks installed on the on Auburn Street. And my original understanding was they wanted it from the over 55 community to the Brockton line. As we all know, the town is working on a number of plans to develop sidewalks and better roads. And there are a number of areas in town that have no benefit of sidewalks that have been there for a long time. I think of Route 58 and all the residential development that's occurred there, and there are absolutely no sidewalks. The projected cost that Bruce Martin from the DPW calculated to do the sidewalks they're requesting is about $1.3 million. They have some hope of drawing federal funds for it, but we're not aware of any programs that are going to help us get there. Nonetheless, they have requested an opportunity to meet with the board publicly to discuss their concerns for the sidewalks and to invite other elected representatives. I know our schedule is full. So I would suggest maybe we think about looking at something in early January so that I can respond and let them know that we've talked about it and we'd like to hear what they have to say.
I see no issue with that. I also reached out to Bruce Martin because I was somewhat puzzled by a comment in that email that the state was going to fund those sidewalks. In no uncertain terms, Bruce has checked with state officials. They will not pay for those sidewalks. So if that would get out there, I would hate to see a mix-up and people starting to think the state was going to pay for this, and they're not.
Can I elaborate? The joint transportation and the MPO, our schedule of updating certain things is stretched out to 2026. In our program. So for that to come up, it would be a long way.
Yeah.
Because there are things that are I hate to say it, some people that live on 14 may not feel this way, but there are more important issues as far as safety with the road safety and stuff like that need to be taken care of with traffic studies and things than sidewalks.
I agree, but nonetheless,
Well, listen, yeah.
we will listen. Okay, 7:10, the first proposed retailer, again, Brian Wall from Flower and Soul. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm attorney Blake Mensing, and I'm proud to be here representing Brian Wall and Flower and Soul 2. Just a couple of quick notes. I have a background in municipal law. I've also been a local regulator myself, so I'm certainly aware of the many other, lanes of attention where you're, divided. So I know cannabis isn't all you think about; it happens to be all I think about. So I help folks comply with local rules and state regulations. I've helped secure over 100 licenses in the state thus far, and it is literally all I think about all day, every day. So what we're proposing here is an adult use retail establishment, a Tier 1 cultivation, a manufacturing, and a transportation license, which would entitle its holder to do business-to-business transport, essentially moving products from licensed entities to licensed entities. One thing I'd like to highlight on the fact that this would become vertically integrated in terms of supplying, manufacturing, and retailing, under the state's new host community agreement law, the days of a 3% community impact fee being the default are over. The reason that I think being vertically integrated distinguishes us from some of the other applicants is that every single product grown and manufactured that gets retailed through the store here would be subject to the 3% local option tax. So that, I think, helps to impact Whitman's bottom line. And I would also just note that Brian has an operational dispensary already in Halifax, so this isn't his first rodeo, and it's obviously something that is very detail oriented. You have to follow the rules, or else you can't play the game. So I am going to turn it over to Brian to go through the presentation, and the reason I'm here tonight is basically to answer any and all questions that you might have in terms of state regulations, et cetera. So I appreciate your time and turn it over to Brian.
Thank you, Blake. Hello, Chairman and fellow board members. I appreciate you allowing me to present. We're actually going to run this because it would be a vertical operation as Soul Flower versus Flower and Soul. We just feel like because it's going to be vertical, it would create its own brand. We would have its own product names. So it would be run as just a different name than my Halifax store. So as Blake said, we're looking to open vertical operation at 356 South Ave, which just was recently purchased by Jeff Walker and his business partner. Jeff owns Walker Development. We've walked the building. We've decided, identified the locations. We're going to try to take all of one side of the building so that all our operations are continuous, and that we have no impact on any of the communities, and we can control good traffic flow in that location. Having all the licenses made in one product, as Blake said, will allow us to transfer product, to our dispensary, benefiting the town, and any excess product we'll sell wholesale to other dispensaries that we're close with. We're also, if the town, right now the town does not have delivery as an allowable use, but if it ever did, we have a right to take on the rest of any more spots in the building. We would be happy to partner with the town in sponsor social equity in the space so that you would get that revenue, because as being a yes towns, anyone can deliver to Whitman. You just wouldn't get the benefit of the 3%, where if you had delivery, you would benefit from that 3% in all communities. So we do have the space to do that, to partner with the town. A little bit about myself. I grew up in Whitman. I graduated from Whitman Hanson in 1990. My parents, who are in the background here, still live on Stetson Street. They bought their house in 1970. I grew up there. I think I'll be cleaning it out someday. I don't see them ever going anywhere. If anyone knows a plow driver, I got to get them not to actually use a snowblower this year. I have local connections here that'll just allow me to want to be really involved in the community. A lot of my friends that I went to high school still live in town. So I have a direct connection to Whitman. What really drives me to be in the industry is I believe in a wellness approach to cannabis, in that every customer is treated individually and with their interest in mind. So we're not just selling the product. When you come in, we actually don't want you using self-service terminals. We want to engage you. We want to understand why you're there. Is CBD right for you? Is THC? Is it THC, CBD, CBGN? So we really want to educate you and become to knowing you, so when you come back, you'd be like, oh, I'm going to go see Blake. Blake understands me, or Blake helped me with this. I want to tell him 1906 didn't work, maybe something else did. So we're really not about a throughput. We're about consumer engagement, lower volume, more customer interaction. I've been in the cannabis space since 2017. I left an asset management firm in 2017. I worked for a hedge fund in Boston. And when I left there, I saw that cannabis had the same back office needs as a hedge fund did that I helped create. So when I looked at it, the payroll HR functionality was really fragmented. So I started Adaptive HR to provide payroll, HR, 401k, employee benefits to cannabis companies. We're a national firm. We're in 22 states. So that's how I got into the cannabis space. After selling that company, I decided to go on the other side of the fence and open my first dispensary, knowing that I either have run payroll for most of the companies in Massachusetts or have good relationships. So it really allows me to access the product if times were tight and products are limited. Those relationships go a long way in ensuring we get top quality product at reasonable prices for the consumer out there. And then I really look to be part of the community. I just don't want to be a business, and we've done that in Halifax. We sponsored the fireworks in Halifax this year. We've put the speed signs up on 106, so anyone that drives down there, you notice now the speed signs, we put those up. We just recently bought a mountain bike for the police department, and we ran a special we gave all profits on a veteran-owned cannabis company, Freshly Baked, we're still running that for the whole month of November. All profits are going to the Veterans Affairs / VFW in Halifax. So we don't look to be a business, we look to be a partner. So we always want to be talking to, whether it's the select board, whether it's the school, whether it's community engagement, and finding out how we can help. Under the CC rules, like with the soccer team wanted us to donate stuff, it's tough, right? Because everyone's under 18. So any way we can do it and still be in compliance with the CCC, we like to be part of the community. I always look to, operate high quality compliant businesses. So again, personal touch, high quality product. We're not going to carry $10 eighths, right? We're going to carry really products that meet the client's needs and we can be proud of. I use local contractors where we can. Obviously some parts of the cannabis industry and the construction is specialized, but where possible, we try to use all local contractors. And we opened in Halifax in 11 months. So from the time we got our HCA and submitted it to the CCC to opening was 11 months. Window. So we've shown that we can open quickly. We've shown that we have the ability to do it. And we look to do the same thing here to maximize the revenue to the town of Whitman. Sorry. I forgot to add this. So we went that one. So just the team right now. So it's Blake and myself here. My wife will be involved in this. She teaches in Hull. They have a commitment with the school, between going to the Super Bowl and some other stuff. She wasn't able to make it today. And then we'll build out the team with, obviously people from the industry, with some of the mergers, there's good people out there looking for it. A little bit on myself, I went to Quinnipiac, my wife went to Quinnipiac, it was college, now it's university. I double majored in accounting, computer science, my wife was an English major. I went to BU for my MBA, she went to BC for a master's in teaching, so yes, we argue over the bean pot all the time. So one of the things that really by being operational, being involved in the industry is all our delivery partners are in line. They're all ready to go, ready to start on this project if we were lucky enough to be granted an HCA. So we have Blake on our compliance and on our application. We use Burns Levinson on our strategic matters. AFCPA is tax and accounting. And then we're using Dennis Caldwell as our architect, Key Construction, and Centronics for security. and then Cross and Hub Insurance for different types of insurance, and then Stoker Compliance for the state-required compliance. So all those people are in play. All of them have visited the site, so now they've already started thinking what we need, what will it take. We will be, we've already started looking at your requirements for site plan approval, special permit. So we'll be moving along. I'll be incurring cost in the hope of getting all that, but I want to be able to move and be open quickly, just like we were previously. So, I'm all about, taking the chance, being forefronted on it. So when you think of the site, as we mentioned, it's 356 South Ave. It's got good street visibility, has a lot of room for us to put cultivation, manufacturing, on the side of the building where the restaurant used to be when I grew up. I think it's been many things since that. Keeping it all there so the flow is good. There's plenty of parking. Jeff has indicated to me they're getting ready to redo the landscaping right now around the building. They're going to rip a lot of that up. They're putting all new windows in, new parking lot, plus many other upgrades to the building. So Walker, Jeff and his partner through Walker Development are really looking to improve the building. We're looking to be a big part of that by taking a big chunk of his, real estate from him. So you asked us next steps on this. So next steps for us would be, signing an HCA. Blake has communicated with town council. We've reviewed the HCA. We had a few comments, potentially a few edits, but that's for Blake and your council to work out. But there was very minor revisions if we had any to recommend. So it would be signing the thing. We would then commit to trying to get the host community agreement, the public outreach meeting within December. If you voted on the 13th, we have to, follow certain guidelines, but we would, we'd already have all the 300-foot of the butters pulled. We would be ready to do that if we were lucky enough to be appointed on the 13th to try to have the host community outreach meeting within December. So then we could submit our application to the CCC also in December. It'll be a lot easier as being second time around because 90% of it is there, right? We have to operate except for the new facility, but for the dispensary, we're well past the 50-yard line by being a second location. We'll finish the design. The architect is already working on it now, and then we would commit to opening, we think, in 9 to 11 months. We think we can do it quicker this time because we have everything in the plan, lined up. We know what we did wrong the first time, and that'll help us go through
9 to 11 months for all aspects of the business?
the dispensary.
The dispensary.
Yeah, the grow and those will take longer. Just, it's just the more complicated.
The main construction angle on a dispensary is the security apparatus, the cameras and locks, et cetera. For cultivation and manufacturing, it's, creating a microclimate. It just costs more and takes longer to construct.
Roughly how long?
I would guess 4 months would be, lightning speed for something like that, but I would defer to the contractors.
Yeah.
But yeah, we could have the dispensary open. The commission will inspect, on a per license basis. So if we needed to, we could call it, unit 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then they understand the 4 corners of where that license would be. You get your provisional license, you have a post-provisional license inspection, it gets kicked up for a final vote, then a final inspection, and then there's a period of time where you have to wait even after they've given you the commence operations notice. But that can be on a per license basis. And as I mentioned earlier, the retail is the component that has the 3% local option tax. So that would be queued up to then funnel through products, basically left arms stocking the right arms shelves once the cultivation and manufacturing were open.
Yep, and we would obviously engage with the police chief early on to see if there's any specific places he'd like cameras to give exposure to South Ave. We've put cameras, so 106 is all under camera for our building, so if the police chief ever needed, he can come in, do it. We'd also work with the chief. In Halifax, they don't have the ability to have the panic buttons go to them, but maybe Whitman does. So if the chief wanted panic buttons, if he wants access to cameras, anything that's allowed in the CCC, we're all hands up for the police chief in his department. We're we're here to work with the chief, not to be an obstacle to him. So things that we've completed so far on this is, obviously, we've been through with our architect. They're doing an initial layout. Our contractors and security firms have walked the facility, working with the architect on some of that initial thought process. And then, as I mentioned, I've emailed Chief Hanlon, Deputy Chief, I'm going to say this wrong, Bombardier, and Dare Officer Harrington, just inquiring about what the town's doing for drug awareness and drug prevention. Just, again, want to know how we can help, things that we can partner on, if there's any things we can actually help for in the meantime. Again, we're looking to be a partner with them around that thing. What will this site, we went through that. So what's our current, this is our current store in Halifax, modern design, good throughput, TVs with products on it. And then this is what it looks like, today is we have CBD products on the floor. We're one of the only stores with gummy CBDs because they have to be tested just like cannabis, believe it or not. So we believe in having a combination of THC products and CBD and being really engaging with that. So again, if you walk through that glass door, there would be an employee that would greet you, help you build your menu, even though we have self-service terminals on the back wall. We don't prevent you to use it, but we try to work with you versus doing that. So I would be a similar design of that, just slightly bigger, as we're looking for the dispensary to be roughly 3,000 to 3,500 square feet, so double what we have here. We have 1,700 square feet in Halifax. We'd be looking to have, just because we have the opportunity to be that big.
And just to clarify, that's the sort of totality of the operation. That's not all customer accessible sales floor area. Inherently, you need a vault to store the product for overnight storage. So just to be clear.
So you asked us about revenue. So, based on what census numbers, it looks like Whitman has roughly just over 15,000 people. Of that, it looks to be about just over 10,000 or over 21, which means they could buy our product. So we would say Whitman as a total would be $7.5 to $10 million in revenue. So that revenue could be split between 1, 2, 3 dispensaries per your regs. The reason why we think it's a smaller number, even with the popularity, is because Brockton has 13 dispensary licenses open, well, not open for business, but that can open, that they've granted HCAs to. One of them, Cush Groove, is opening right on the Whitman-Brockton line where you split to go to Skate Town, if it's still called Skate Town. And so if you kind of think, if you live that side of Whitman, you probably go in the Cush Groove as long as they have the product, then coming to one of the other dispensaries in Whitman. So you're going to lose part of your business to them. And then Abington has 4 HCAs out, 1 open, a couple others getting ready, 2 open. So, you're squeezed between, you're not surrounded by no towns. You're, have competition there. And then, just in general, more dispensaries doesn't mean more revenue to the town. From what we've seen, talking to people from Sharon and Norton that only allow 1 dispensary, is those dispensaries are actually better partners with the town because the revenue's there, the profit's there to be if the town needs a resource officer or if they need help with free lunch program because, right, they're the only ones, so they can allocate more to the town. So, and they're not fighting anyone on just pure price, which happens when you get in a competitive market like Brockton. As I mentioned, and then Marshfield and Natick each have only 2 licenses in there. And that's kind of why the state allowed towns to cap it based on the number of liquor stores you have. And I think Whitman has 3 liquor stores right now, per the state website.
Just authorized 4th.
Okay, yeah, great.
Census, 2020 census.
And then, again, so when we look at it, we think that the dispensary could do $3.5 to $5 million, depending on, in year 1, depending on how many locations the town granted HCAs to and how quickly each one opened. So that 3%, would equate to $105,000 to $150,000 worth of the 3% tax that you approved at town meeting. And then if the CCC approved, if you had the receipts to justify the additional 3%, you would get another $105,000 to $150,000 in revenue. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the statute on host community agreements changed, as I referenced a little earlier. So the nexus required for a cost to be, reimbursable to a town is a reasonable relation to the facility's operation. So I think it's important to highlight that this location is not stepping on the toes of any sensitive areas, either under state regulations or the local bylaw. No schools, no playgrounds, no parks, within the distances measured. So for retail, that's really the sort of lane of the industry that has the highest potential for impacts. The best example would be, if there was an influx of traffic and you needed to add a stop sign or a traffic light, that would be clearly reasonably related. The reality today is we have about 250 stores open in the state. So the headlines from 3-4 years ago where the lines were around the block, those days are over. The number of people who consume cannabis is relatively, static. And I think people, are willing to drive, 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes to go to a store. There's not, great pilgrimages across the state anymore because it's the only game in town. So the day-to-day traffic is likely, probably to be less impactful than a Dunkin' Donuts. But obviously a better tax revenue to the town than the comparable.
Yep. And then the other licenses, again, would be somewhat dependent on the HCA fee, but we think cultivation in year one, because it's going to be self-generating, would be about, $3.5 to $5 million, similar to the dispensary, because we're self-serving, somewhat of our own business on that a little bit, plus wholesaling a little bit. Manufacturing, we think, would be $2.2 to $3 million, so another $60,000 to $90,000. Again, depending on the HCA fee that the state allows, and transportation would be $1 to $1.5 million, another $30,000 to $45,000. So totally, once everything's functional, if the CCC allows the HCA's, we would pay the $105,000 to $150,000 in 3% tax, which you by right you have, and then another $300,000 to $435,000 in HCA fees, depending on the CCC. Who knows if rules change? Obviously Shannon O'Brien's there now. So anything could happen, right? They could say we need to reinstate some fee back to towns on that. Partnering with Soulflower, it really doesn't just bring the town to 3% revenue. It brings a partner to the community of Whitman. We'll have every employee commit to providing 40 hours of community service, of working, whether that's working with the police, working for groups that can't get volunteers. So every employee, we participate in cleanup day all the time in Halifax, cleaning up 106. I mean, I never knew there was so much trash on 106. We would commit to making, and it can't be in the HCA, but we would sign a separate agreement, or we're publicly making it right now. We would publicly commit to making donations per license of $10,000 to charities or to organizations in the town of Whitman. And then, I saw that. And then just the last thing is on what we would do is each location, the dispensary we think would have at least 20 to 30 employees. It might have more depending, how large the sales floor is. And then manufacturing would have similar 20 to 30 employees. Cultivation, because it would be small, would be 15 to 20, and transportation would be 10 to 15. So we'd bring a lot of employment to the town, and we would comply with the CCC. We'd look to hire local Whitman people from the community, women, veterans, and people from minority candidates to comply with our thing. And the last thing I'll leave you with is what we really bring is real experience and true leadership. We've done it. We've proven relationships, proven expectations that we've opened in 11 months, so we can really bring you an operational partner.
All right. We did allow you to go a little longer.
I appreciate that.
We definitely appreciate your interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Would you like to work this? I'll work the remote. Actually, how do you work the remote?
Hold on one second, Jim. What you may have saw me, I I don't know exactly how long the presentations are going to go. Obviously, you'll be allotted some extra time if needed, because I gave the first person. What we didn't have was a Q&A, so what I'm going to say to the board after this is if we have individual questions, we'll send them to Frank, and through Peter Sumner's, we'll reach out to the companies, because I'm sure questions are going to be from the board, but the primary goal of tonight was giving you as much time as you can to speak about the product.
Great, and we're happy to stay till the end of the evening if there's any sort of general discussion. Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Lynham. My name is Attorney Sean Riley. To some of you, I might be a familiar face. I live in the town of Abington. I actually did live in the town of Whitman for just right down the street at Holt Park Place. I obviously am very familiar with the town of Whitman. I am familiar with a lot of the business owners in the town of Whitman, a lot of the businesses, and I've appeared before some of your local boards. I'd like to thank the subcommittee from the Board of Selectmen that worked with us and some of the other applicants on drafting the proposed host community agreement. I thought it was a pretty open, frank, and constructive conversation, and we look forward to moving forward. Berkeley Botanicals, LLC, is my client, and Matt Radabaugh is next to me here. He'll be doing the presentation. Matt is an owner and is the manager and will be the day-to-day manager here in Whitman. He has experience since 2014. He and his father operated and managed a cannabis business in the town of Bridgewater. Matt also has a lot of experience in southern New England with other businesses in the cannabis industry, so he brings to it a working knowledge. Yes, sir. Right there. Thank you, sir. We are proposing this business would open at 305 Bedford Street, which is Route 18, I'm sure you're aware, in this property owned by Sweezy Properties, Mr. Ken Sweezy, another local Whitman businessman. We have the benefit of being obviously very visible on Route 18. It's a brand new building, brand new site. Site plan's already been approved. Building is up, and we would just be building out the shell upon approval from this for the host community agreement and from the CCC, and of course, after the zoning board and the building department approve our plans. Our site is the most southern site of the four that are being proposed to you, so obviously we'd get a lot of that northbound traffic first. And we look forward to capturing that traffic and having that business, that money spent in the town of Whitman. As many of you know, I represented Bud's Goods in Abington, the first applicant in Abington, but Berkeley Botanical is the first applicant, well, the first person to submit an application package here in Whitman. And Bud's Goods has been a very good improvement or a benefit to the town of Abington. They moved forward, opened very quickly, as Matt has done. He is opening a business in Berkeley as we speak and has gone through a similar process as described by Mr. Wall earlier. I don't want to take up a lot of Matt's time, so I'd like to introduce Matt Radabaugh, who will go through his business proposal, and we'll have any questions we'd love to answer you at the time.
Thanks much, Sean. Mr. Chairman, other selectmen, thank you for having me. Second time in, I really appreciate the opportunity now to speak again. So I'm going to try to get this clicker right. And I did practice my timing with my wife to try to keep it within my limit, so she wasn't that happy about it with the stopwatch. So a little bit information about us. What you see right here, I am the managing member and one of the owners of Berkeley Botanicals. Our other members are also in the cannabis industry. I partnered with one of the members to open the first dispensary in the city of Philadelphia. Another member is dispensaries in State College, Arizona, as well as one of my other partners. We won one of the grow licenses in the state of Pennsylvania in a limited license, which we eventually sold to a large multi-state operator. From there, I actually joined Air Wellness, and I was the VP of operations for Sierra Naturals in Massachusetts, where we were selling product to 175 dispensaries within the state. This year alone for Sierra Naturals, I opened all three of their rec dispensaries, as well as their product manufacturing and cultivation facility, which is 115,000 square feet in Milford. So with that, I have a lot of experience with the CCC inspection process. I had zero deficiencies in my last 5 inspections, so it's understanding how to work within the rules and regulations. This isn't a day job for me. This is my life. I have been doing this since 2014. My father won his license in 2011 in Portsmouth, Rhode Island, Greenleaf Compassionate Care Center, which is right there on West Main Road. So he opened his doors in 2013, and as fathers do, they kind of can strong arm you to work with them. So I partnered with my father. From there, my father applied, and We actually work with two of the attorneys in this room in his other business in Bridgewater, Massachusetts. He is an owner still at Alternative Compassion Services, which is a phenomenal medical operation right there in Bridgewater, and another one in Hull. So I opened that as the COO, got it off the ground, worked with the Department of Health back then, before it was the Cannabis Control Commission. From there, I transitioned over to work with my friends to open their dispensary in Fall River, which was Hope Heal Health, which became Cresco Labs. Worked with another one of the great attorneys in this room on that one. So I understand New England cannabis. One thing that we are is very well capitalized. We built from a ground up build. It took us 6.5 months to build a vertical 24,000 square foot vertical operation in Berkeley, Massachusetts. We would have been open last December if it were not for supply chain. We had a dark building waiting for mechanical switchgear. It took 62 weeks for our switchgear to come in. So we had everything done, sitting on an empty shell, invested the full, basically almost $15 million to build this out from ground up. So we are very well capitalized. We know how to get these off the ground. We're not here to collect paper. We're here to open these operations, do it compliantly, and partner with the town. We've already been vetted, like the person before, by the CCC. We already have a provisional license. I've been working with the CCC closely since inception, when it first became the CCC. Our mission and vision is, it's about a customer experience. It's about providing the products that people want. The benefit of being an operator in New England since 2014 is I have a lot of great relationships. It's all about product quality and product diversity. It's not our job to tell you what you want to buy. It's our job to work with you to figure out what you need and how it can help you. So our vision is really to work with the customers, treat everything like an individual experience. And our vision is to be a true community partner. It's having great community outreach. It's doing community events. It's partnering within the community. It's looking at it as it's a true relationship. I see a business and a town. You want to have confidence in any business that opens up that they're going to be an honorable business person. You know, I'm a father and a husband, and I want to be the best role model I can be. And we want to be the best role models as a business as we can be. Not a cannabis company, but just a business. We want to operate responsibly. We want to collaborate with our neighbors and collaborate with the town. So we're actually have submitted CCC paperwork for a DBA. So we're not going to be called Berkeley Botanicals in Whitman. We're going to be Renew Cannabis Co. We're estimating revenue of $3 to $5 million annually, very close to what you heard before. You know, and we did that, it's just based on math within the market. Just because more dispensaries are opening, right now there's just around approximately 260 licensed dispensaries in Massachusetts, with another 200 additionally in licensing today, within provisional or post-provisional. In some form, they are in licensing. The average monthly sales is right around 115 to 120 million within the state. So, and based on that, just doing math, we feel that with the license coming on and what we have kind of projected, just from the host community agreement, $90,000 to $150,000 annually, not even including the sales tax, which is part of the transaction purchase. You know, our operating hours, we're going to operate Monday through Saturday from 10 to 9, and Sunday from 11 to 6. Here's our timeline. It's approximately, like you heard before, from HCA signing, approximately 11 months. So I didn't know kind of the dates, so I was trying to do my best guess on dates. So if we're receiving... Yeah, it was just a guess, I'll tell you that. I didn't wiretap anybody on this. So it's receiving an HCA on the 21st. Right there, once we receive the HCA, we already have a floor plan done. We would go into MEP architectural design. We already have our abutters list. We'd send out our abutters list, give people time to attend the meeting, and part of that is me going door to door to the neighbors like I did in previous towns and introducing myself too. I don't just want them to get a certified letter in the mail. I feel that's not neighborly. They should be able to see the person that's going to run it, be able to shake my hand, yell at me, spit at me, tell me if you disagree with me or agree with me. It's not my job to change your mind. It's my job to be a responsible business owner, and you know who you can come and talk to. So part of that is I want to try to knock on the neighbors' doors, meet them, let them meet me, and start that relationship. After, we'll submit our CCC application. We're saying based on current CCC timing, we're thinking in April is when we should see a provisional license. From there, we'll submit our architectural approval for security plan layout, and then while that's happening, our landlord will be doing interior fit out. That is not part of the requirements of the CCC. He's just creating the vanilla shell. Once we get our C of O from Whitman, we will be submitting that day for a PPLI. That's the post-provisional license. Once we go through the whole, we will go through all the steps of the PPLI, which includes a document request. We have to do an interview, and then we have a physical inspection. They have to file their report. You have to hope you time it out right for their report to be filed to make it onto a CCC meeting. Once we make that meeting, we get our final license, and we will have our metric turned on, which will allow us to bring in inventory. So we can't start bringing in inventory. Once we have inventory in, we have all of our responsible vendor training, which is part of the license requirement, and go through background checks. We do all the things that's required for an inspection. We will call for a post-final license inspection. And then once they come in, they'll do our post-final license inspection, look at the last couple things, make sure our inventory is accurate based on their RFID. Each metric tag that the state system is RFID tagged, and they'll make sure your inventory is correct. From there, you will hopefully get a commence operations. They'll file a report. So even once you get your final license, it still takes over a month to be able to open the doors. So it is the steps in the process of the CCC. You have to respect that there's a meeting schedule and you're working with inspectors. And you're not the only client, believe it or not, so you have to work with them. This is an example of our design. It's still, we'll work with Whitman, work with police to kind of get a good design. So we're going to have different areas within the dispensary. We're going to have 3 to 5 regular point of sale stations where we see the average transaction of about 12 to 15 minutes. That means someone's coming in not knowing what they want to purchase. They're looking for the full experience. They want to be walked through the products. They want to be educated on the products and the effects, whether it be flour, edibles, tinctures, sublinguals, capsules, soft drinks, concentrates. Then we have our pre-order point of sales, so which you'll see our quick order kiosks as well as point of sales at the register. People already know what they want. We're not going to try to force an experience down anybody's throat. We want them to be able to have the experience that they want. So they know what they want. They've either ordered ahead of time through our online ordering system, or they're coming in and they're ordering through our quick kiosk area, which will be fulfilled in the back. And then we have 2 to 3 point of sales. So those transactions take 4 to 6 minutes. They're coming in. We're just verifying the order. This is what you want. Let's making sure you're getting what you purchased. And then we're going to have 2 to 3 economic empowerment third-party home delivery point of sales. So we are not able to do home delivery, but the state has done a great job of offering economic empowerment licensees the ability to do home delivery, and we want to make sure that they have a smooth experience so they can be as successful as possible. So we want to dedicate point of sale space so that they can have quick transactions, so they can hit delivery times, so that we're helping another business thrive within the Commonwealth, because it's a tough business and we want to be a good partner for some of these economic empower licensees. The types of payment we'll be taking will be cashless and cash, and it's not credit cards, it'll be PIN debit or through ACH, CamPay, or Hyper. An idea of the customer flow, so the main entrance door, which is right below the vestibule right there, will be open. You'll come in, the secondary door will be a man trap, it will be locked. So our security will verify the ID. We have high-tech ID scanners that can verify state military IDs. Once it's verified, you will be buzzed into the vestibule area. We will have a greeter that is set up within there that will ask you, do you have a pre-order, making sure, do you have an appointment? Would you like a quick kiosk, or would you like to go to a point of sale? And they will guide them through the next step for where they are. After you go through the point of sale, you'll make your purchase, and then we have a separate egress. So we're not having people come in and out the same door. The way we're going to start with appointments for the first 30 days to understand the traffic patterns, the customer flows, so that we can better predict scheduling and just more product allocation, so we have the freshest products within the facility. And then we will have pre-orders with pickup by appointment also. So it's They will make their order online, they'll have a pickup window, and they'll come in. So we really want to try to understand the traffic flow and how to operate, how the dispensary is going to operate every day, and then from there, we'll make a determination if we're going to maintain the appointment only or open it up for just complete walk-ins. We walk through kind of the intake process and how people enter and exit, and we feel that's more for just the experience. We don't want people coming in and out the same door. You should have those two forms of egress. You walk in one way, you walk out the other, and you kind of keep that separate space. You know, just from my experience, and I've been operating since 2014, a big thing that's always a concern is preventing the sale to minors. So you can't get onto the dispensary floor without being buzzed in from our security staff. So it's verifying that it's a valid ID. It's a high-tech scanner that you see at bars and restaurants. So it's going to make sure that you are legally allowed to be in that building. We're going to have physical security inside and outside the building to make sure people aren't trying to have people buy for them. We're going to be responsible business owners. And we're also going as part, besides what's in the community host agreement, which is part of community education, we're going to be involved in community events and being part of local organizations within Whitman and surrounding cities and towns so that they're showing that we're about educating on the product and responsible use. Another big thing that's always a concern is inventory loss, diversion. So we take that very seriously. So you will see cameras over every single register that's independent of the robust camera coverage in all areas of the four walls and the exterior. So and our camera layout will be an overlapping design so that if we were to lose a camera, we have another camera that's able to pick it up. So we would never have to worry about a camera loss. We would do twice a day full inventory of every single product in the facility, as well as multiple product cycle counts throughout the day of certain SKU items to make sure that not only that the staff knows that we're really looking at inventory, we're taking it very seriously. We're going to maintain limited access areas through access control. We're not going to have a lot of keys. We're going to have fob access. Keys will only be for the highest level individuals as well as security so that we can, at a moment's notice, shut off access. And it's also limiting cash on the floor. We're going to make sure that not just the flower product that is behind the counter, but also we're going to limit the amount of cash and have responsible drops. So there's not kind of that enticement to have that loss. So our philosophy on security, it's really having guards working with a customer service approach. It's not bringing that kind of scary, that prison warden approach. We want to create an experience. It's all about that concierge approach. It's a smiling, it's being open, it's listening, it's conflict resolution. It's not trying to scare people, intimidate people. It's want to know that, hey, we're here just for your safety. We're here to protect the product, protect you, and protect against diversion. We'll have a combination of interior and exterior security. They're going to be walking throughout the interior and exterior of the building to make sure that there is no diversion, there is no attempted theft or trying to break in or any form of nefarious individuals that are out there. We'll have randomized delivery times. It's being that we've been delivering into 175 dispensaries in the current business. We appreciate the randomized delivery times, and it's working with our vendors to ensure that we have randomized times because we don't want patterns to be created. We don't want people to be able to know, hey, we know at 3 o'clock every Tuesday they're going to get this. So it's making sure that we create that randomization on delivery times for marijuana product and pickup times and delivery times of cash, because we will use a cash courier service and we don't want ever to create patterns. We'll have best-in-class security system as security features within the design to maintain safety for employees and customers. That's through limited access areas, camera coverage, and individuals. We'll have an encrypted network for protection of information so that company files are not being stolen. We'll use best-in-class data security to ensure that we're encrypting our files. And we will have a very collaborative relationship like I've had with every other city, town, municipality I've worked with local police and fire. It's making sure that we're working, the first responders are getting through, understanding the layout, that we're working with the police, working with the fire so that we are a good partner and we're creating a safe space.
I'm going to have to stop you there. That was the extra 5.
Okay.
You know, as I'm thinking about this, and if my colleagues wouldn't mind, rather than sending in question, if Mr. Wall, has anyone from your team left? I know you're. I would really like to ask these, if we're going to have a Q&A, ask this in a public forum so the public can see it. They're going to be able to watch this meeting. So if you wouldn't mind staying, my plan would be after everyone makes their presentations, in the same order, we'll bring you back up and have a Q&A if that works for everyone.
That'd be wonderful.
All right?
No, that'd be great. Thank you.
And again, the 5 minutes running long. I'm sorry, that was my fault.
We appreciate it, and thank you for your consideration for the host community agreement.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Close that. And we go to the-
Okay.
Homegrown.
So if I get this right this time, it's Valeria.
Homegrown.
Valerio, okay. Yep. Sorry about that.
Make sure I get this
And
working.
you are representing Stories.
I don't know, just flip it.
Just.
Oh, there we go.
down.
Yep, perfect. Thank you to the chair and members of the board, Valerio Romano from VGR Law Firm for the Stories Company, LLC. A pleasure to be here. Briefly about myself, I've been doing this for as long as probably some of the other folks in the room. I'm a co-author of the ballot initiative that ended cannabis prohibition in Mass. Licensed, certainly 100 or more businesses. So I think the experience from various members of the last 3 teams is probably fairly equivalent. And so I'm not going to belabor that too much, and we can cut to some more of the meat and potatoes of the. Gosh, I just did it. There we go. So we're proposing to open just a recreational or adult use cannabis retailer at 769 Bedford Street. Recreational marijuana retailer is the language from your zoning bylaw. I'm joined tonight principally by Davis Patel, who's the founder of Stories. He's a doctor in Providence at Brown. And we're also joined by Yash Patel and Tejal Patel. Yash is a cardiologist, and Tejal actually participates in running, and we'll get to their slides briefly, but she also participates in running an open dispensary in Massachusetts as well. So the Stories' goal was to increase market participation for those who can't really get into the market necessarily themselves as easily. There's been there's actually thousands of applications over the years since the DPH was running the medical program, and a few hundred open now, and really it's just there's an incredible barrier when it comes to financing and experience, and it's just really hard. It takes a lot of time. This is all I do as well. And so the idea is to bring in market participation for those who actually pave the way for the cannabis industry. And it's really Davis's, idea. So here's a little about Davis. We can read through this. Davis, do you want to touch on yourself briefly?
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Davis Patel. I am the founder of the Stories Company. First of all, thank you for having us, and we're appreciative of the chance to be heard. A little bit about myself. I am a Massachusetts native. I grew up and I currently live in Waltham, Massachusetts. I did my undergraduate studies at Northeastern University here in Boston, and then I went to medical school in the Caribbean at American University of Antigua. I did my residency training in internal medicine in the South Bronx of New York at Lincoln Medical Center, and currently I am a part-time hospitalist at Brown University, part of the Lifespan Network in Providence. Sort of my interest and journey in cannabis started during my residency years. While doing ICU rotations, I noticed that at any given time, about 50% of admitted patients in ICU beds were there due to complications of 2 things, either alcohol or opioids. I started really looking into root causes of this, socioeconomic, but obviously substances, are the culprit that brought them into that hospital stay. And I started really diving into medical research and studies that are done on cannabis use for medical purposes, as well as just recreational purposes and observational studies. And I came to the conclusion through my own research, through observing the industry, speaking with a lot of cardholders, that I basically came to the conclusion that if we have a cultural shift over the next, let's say, 30 to 50 years, one that moves away from opioids and alcohol to more of a cannabis consumption, I truly am a believer that we'll have better health outcomes. If there's an individual who is abusing alcohol or opioids, I guarantee you those health side effects and detriments will be much worse than someone who's consuming and even abusing cannabis at the same level. Just from a risk reduction standpoint, I'm a true believer that we need this cultural shift to take place. From a responsible use standpoint, the debate on alcohol and cannabis can be a little bit closer, but even then I would still say we'll have better health outcomes if we have a cultural shift away from and towards cannabis. My experience in cannabis at the professional level started about 3.5 years ago. I've been serving as an advisor to Uma Flowers, a retail cannabis company with an operational dispensary in Pepperell. I've been along that journey since the inception until current day, so I really do understand what it takes to open a cannabis business as well as run one in a compliant and responsible and educational manner.
Thank you. And then we're also joined, like I said, by Yash Patel. He's a cardiologist at Brown. He's been also part of the Uma Flowers journey. We've been working closely together. The four of us and the fifth member of our team speak virtually every day about one cannabis business that we're opening or in the process of opening or working on. So it's quite an experienced team, and it's really got this healthcare focus, particularly stories between Davis and Yash and their background. We also have Tejal Patel in the room. She's an advisor for stories, and then Priyanka and Tejal actually opened Uma Flowers, as Davis just talked about, is something that we worked on for quite a while and got close with Pepperell and did all the same things that we will do here. We were the first one to open there. Then we're also joined by our head of security, Scott Benton.
Yes, good evening, board.
I don't know if Scott, is there anything you want to say?
Well, I would just say that I met Yash and Davis, and I had a chance to talk to them. This is a new thing. I was very impressed. As you know, we do have things going on, especially even here in our town, with regards to opioids and things like that. And just to get their perspective and where they were coming from, I found interesting. But like anything, before you make a decision to do something, you want to check it out and vet it and make sure. And I have vetted both of them, and they are as good as they sound. Believe me, I looked, and they're sincere, professional, and on their game. And I'm honored that they asked me actually to be a part of their team.
Thank you, Chief Benton. I appreciate that. And then John Belson, he's a good fishing buddy of mine, lives in Situate. We opened, I think, Airmont was one of the very first medical ones open for years. He was, one of the GC there. We've opened a bunch of different businesses around. He's just a great guy. And then me, we already heard enough about me, and that's me with a haircut. And then our proposed location, this is the more important stuff, and I hate to have wasted the time we did talking about ourselves, but knowing who the team is, I think, is as important as everything else, because the Cannabis Control Commission alone does so much oversight over these things, and so knowing that the team can execute and has executed is incredibly important. So 769 Bedford, I think most of you know the location that we're talking about. It's a former restaurant there on the corner. We'll get to the parking calculation, but so we're going to maintain the look and feel of this, just make the facade super clean and really nice outside for a great customer experience. Here is the proposed location aerial view. Here's a little, we have a site plan that we've drawn up. Of course, when we get to the zoning board of appeal for a special permit, and I think it's the zoning board of appeal for site plan approval too, which is interesting, not the planning board. We've actually proposed 69 spaces with only 23 required. So we have parking undercover. We're gonna buy that. We have binding interest, executed purchase and sale on that property. And so we've, done our homework. We've had an engineer, Ian Ainsley from Meisner Brem, who's, done a survey and put together, site plan. We propose very little exterior work. It's really just striping new spaces and potentially cleaning up the parking lot, cleaning up the pavement and the exterior of the building to make it, really appealing to customers and make that corner look really nice. We also have a conceptual site plan of the interior of the building. It's basically, we've heard the discussion before. I'm not going to belabor it. You come in through sort of a man-trap sally port, get checked out by security, then you get buzzed in. We'll have retail in there, accessible bathrooms, manager's office, point of sale stations. I know that time's tight and I don't want to belabor stuff that isn't necessarily as germane. I think we're going to have, impeccable security. We will work with, obviously we have, a former police chief of Whitman here, as well as we'll work with the current police department. And frankly, the Cannabis Control Commission, they don't really do a lot with sort of health or cannabis. What they do is security, right? I mean, that's sort of their main goal over there, and so they'll be doing it as well. So I'm not going to belabor security too much, but please understand that every single element of this is going to be cameraed and secured, and we're going to have backups and complete interaction and transparency with local law enforcement. So we actually engaged TEP LLC to do a traffic impact assessment as well. So based on the ITE data, we actually have a diminishment in the number of vehicle trips from the previous use to this one. Now, it's based on ITE data, but I think the discussion of how many, 200 plus open dispensaries or close to open dispensaries in Massachusetts, it's not like the early days in Leicester or Northampton, right? So this is, fairly accurate. And so these are weekday PM street peak hours, and we can see that overall the marijuana dispensary use diminishes it. Now, we propose to use the balance of our building for Stories company associated office space, right? So associated with the dispensary. That's the current proposal. And so we're not going to have a ton of Stories employees just sitting in the administrative office space, but say we have 3 or 4, that adds another maybe 6 to 8 vehicle trips per day for the fact that we're going to use that as the Stories offices for hopefully 3 dispensaries in the Commonwealth. And so so that adds maybe 6 to 8 vehicle trips. So it's pretty much equivalent for the most part from the previous restaurant use. We're not talking about a significant impact in traffic on Bedford Street. In fact, overall, it's probably fairly negligible. Our site complies with the zoning set by the Whitman voters. We're in the Highway Business District. We're not within 500 feet of any school, although that's not specified in the bylaw. Like I said, we were proposing 3 times the number of required parking spaces that you would need for a retail and office use, or both 300 or 1 space for every 300 square feet under your bylaw. And so at 6,800 square feet, we need 23, and we've got 69. We think that we can get through the balance of the special permit and site plan approval requirements. I can't count how many I've done for different companies. We've all done them together as well with the Stories and UMA team over the last years. And we have a great engineering team and architecture team. So we think that we can move through that rather quickly. So compliance with local permitting, I think I ran through that. Don't need to belabor that further. So we have experience in the healthcare industry. We've talked about ourselves. We have experience in the cannabis industry, both opening with our sister company and all the work that I've done over the years. I'm firmly a part of this company and not just their attorney or spokesperson, right? We talk virtually every day, me and one of these people, and we're very close. So this is what it looks like in Pepperell. It's really nice. It's like an Apple store, and so we hope to do something similar here as well. So you can take a look at just the beautiful interior, what a welcoming sort of wood environment it is. We'll have customer service reps on the floor to talk to people about, what their different, needs, if they have any questions. For the most part, cannabis consumers in Massachusetts know what they want. They can order online ahead of time. We don't really expect people to be in there for 15 minutes each. It's most people know what they want and come in, either have ordered online ahead of time or order quickly and leave. But should anybody want to have a further discussion, of course, we will have trained dispensary agents there who are willing to talk to anybody about methods of ingestion, different strains, different, THC, CBD, CBN, all the different, active ingredients, and let them choose the best cannabis product for them. Again, sort of like an Apple store, kind of like a nice, really clean setup. So we talked about the problem that, Stories wishes to address. We could have just stayed with the UMA team, but Davis had this vision, and I fully supported, having come from a background in with cannabis, is this sort of lengthy permitting periods and significant capital requirements. And Davis wants to partner with people and bring them in by carrying their products or hiring them and training them, and hopefully they can go off and actually enter the industry. And so that's really the problem that we want to address. So we want to leverage the medical and business experience to provide a pathway for those who might not otherwise be able to participate. Bless you. So we've gone through the sort of the brand and the problem. So again, engaging communities. So UMA so far has done local donations, participating in community health fairs, presenting to the local library to educate the community about medicinal benefits of cannabis, food drives for the local food pantry. These are some of the community initiatives that we've done in Pepperell, and we absolutely want to do the same thing here. We're working with somebody who knows Whitman as well as just about anybody in town, and so we want to engage the community. And to that end, we've talked to Whitman, Hanson, Will. And we believe that engaging them will be especially helpful. We spoke with Amanda Sandoval, the Director of Communications and Prevention Services. It was our takeaway that if Stories gets closer to licensure, Whitman Hanson will be happy to work with us in supporting their mission. She obviously wasn't committing now because we don't even have a host community agreement or an application, but we did speak with her, and she's the recipient of financial assistance for a paid position as an addiction counselor from another cannabis operator in Rockland. So next steps, that was a specific bullet point. I think the board has probably heard this by now, but the next thing for us, ideally, would be to obtain a host community agreement, because that way we can go forward with the full engineering process with the host community agreement in our pocket. I feel like for communities that switch it around the other way, where you have to get special permit and site plan approval, that's a $60,000 investment for these groups, and then they don't even have an HCA yet. We just did it for 2 years with this group, with UMA in Waltham, and we don't know if we're ever going to get the host community agreement. So so this is the right way to do it. This is the way that 95% of the towns do it. Is here we'll give you the HCA that allows you to continue applying. Right? The HCA isn't a license. It's just like keep moving forward in the process. Right? So continue applying at the local level with special permit and site plan approval from the zoning board in Whitman, and then also at the Cannabis Control Commission level. So it's really just sort of a punch on your ticket that you can keep moving forward. So that would be it. Apply to the CCC if we get the HCA certification form, then finalize our engineering documents and apply here. Timeline. It's fairly similar to what you've heard. The CCC can be really quick. Part of it is also, do you get them with enough time to have them review your application, or do you have to wait an extra month because you went in at the wrong time? But basically, the commission marks for application being complete is a big milestone. This very conservative timeline, we expect to be open, according to this, 384 days after that. It's conservative. We've all done it before. We'll move through as quickly as we can. We have, everything sort of templated and ready to go for a cannabis retailer. But we put together this timeline based on, the commission marking the application complete. Financial projections. So this was something that I know the board was interested in, and they're fairly similar to what we've heard, right? This is based on, an idea of about what Pepperell's doing, also looking at the local community, and then also judging what the full cannabis industry is doing. So it's sort of a combination of what everybody's been talking about, and this sort of breaks out, the host community agreement. should the 3% fully materialize, there has been a shift in 94G subsequent to Senate Bill 3096. We certainly will not object to the accounting that the town does, and so I think every municipality is waiting for the Cannabis Control Commission to issue some guidance here on what you can put into the HCA fees. But assuming that it's 3%, this is sort of the money that we would be giving to the town year after year, and it goes up because we will expect to. What we found is that you have greater customer buy-in after they know you're there. It takes some months and a year, so it will get better and better. I also did this a different way. So I also took, and this part of this is conservative, part of it's a little much, but so I think one of the problems that people have or applicants have is they promise 10, 12, $15 million, but then you get to special permit granting authority, and I'll be very quick. Am I almost done?
Yeah.
Then you get to the special permit granting authority, and you can't justify that with your traffic. How do you have enough parking if you're going to say I'm going to do 12 million in sales, right? So another way that I looked at this was I took the ITE data and I looked at it and I did the math, and that would be the max, that we expect to be able to do under the ITE data.
I got to cut you off.
That's great.
I'm sorry about that.
Thank you.
Maybe what you didn't cover will get brought back up in questions.
I mean, that was really it. Yep. Thank you very much to the board and to the chair. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. And next up is Peter D'Agostino representing Mitchell Cannabis Company.
Yeah, can we keep it? Yeah, we got a couple of folks coming up. Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter.
Please drop something.
Thank you.
Mylars.
Do you have a copy of the presentation, Mr. Chairman, or would you like that as well? Just for making notes?
Yes, please.
Just to the town administrator.
Thank you.
We've seen this.
Okay. I know you guys were.
Yeah. Just in case you wanted to make notes as we're going through it.
Thank you.
You ready, Mr. Chairman? Great. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for having us out tonight, and thank you to the committee for meeting with us previously. You have heard a lot tonight. Most of it is covered by the regulations and the law, so to the extent that security and all those things, we'll try to be as brief as possible. I think what's important for the board tonight is to get to know the folks and the team members and who's going to be part of it. As Valerio and Blake said earlier, and all of us worked together for a long time, a lot of this stuff is very heavily regulated. So that's where we'll save time, as these tend to go a little bit longer than we thought. But with that being said, just as a quick introduction, Mitchell Cannabis Company is family-owned business with the gentleman between me here. We got Kenny Sr., Kenny Jr., and Justin, a father and two sons, all Whitman Hanson grads and local members of the community who own businesses both here in Whitman and in the surrounding towns. They are a minority-owned business and also a proposed social equity applicant. So the reason I say proposed is the CCC does not have a cohort open right now, which means people cannot apply currently for social equity status. The board may remember you adopted a policy a couple of months ago in which it encourages participation and application by social equity applicants. So this company would be, I think, the only one tonight that is proposing to do that. We've already been in communications with the CCC relative to the Mitchell's application, and we anticipate that the cohort, based on what they've told us, will be open in early spring. So that's very much in line with the board's goals and established policies. Talked about the gentleman sitting with me this evening. We'll get a little bit more into their background. We are looking at 519 Auburn Street, which is the site plan you have in front of you. And we do intend to maintain the exterior of the building, touch it up, clean up, but we'll get into a little bit more of those details. Just by way of quick background, and just for the sake of time, I guess I'll go through the summary and we'll take questions at the end. But Justin is our CEO. As I mentioned, Whitman Hanson grad, associate's degree in computer science from New England Institute of Technology. Been involved in the community, South Shore Girls Basketball League coach. He's a partner at Kenneth Allen Realty, which is our local real estate brokerage, and also the owner of Boston Legion LLC, provides online services to clients nationwide. So that's a little bit about Justin. We have Kenny Jr. sitting to my far right. Also a grad at Whitman Hanson, graduated from Bridgewater State, and then went on to Suffolk University Law, and he is currently an attorney here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, board certified, doing real estate law and title work, also a founding member of Kenneth Allen Realty, and also the owner of Mitchell Title. He has volunteered here in the community at the Kiwanis International, leading charity drives and things. So both very active members of the community for a long period of time. And then the man, the myth, the legend, Dad, Kenny Sr., longtime Whitman Hanson area graduate from the same high school as his sons, which is a great story. He served the town of Hanson, as many of you may know, as a member of the Board of Selectmen for over 7 years. He also served the town of Hanson for the Parks and Fields Committee for over 10 years. He's been the general manager of Newcomb Tree Service, located in Halifax, for the past 12 years. Has about 40 employees currently, lots of business experience. Also a volunteer at the South Shore Girls Basketball League, and co-owns, along with his wife and daughter, Wicked Loft Cafe right across the street. So a local business owner as well. So very ingrained in the community. A little bit about the team. I'm sorry, I thought I heard a question. A little bit about the team. I'll get into my background in a minute, but our civil engineer is Carl Garvey, who's a well-known engineer here in Whitman. It's a local Whitman business. We have taken the initiative of having already completed an updated site plan for the existing conditions so that we had a clear understanding of kind of what was there and what we could make work. We anticipate making further improvements to that as we go through the process. We've also engaged McMahon Associates to do the traffic engineering, which we can provide a full report to the board, but we'll have some excerpts of it. We've already done our traffic study. Jeff Bandy, who's our traffic engineer, is also a Whitman resident. So very much a local team. We've been focused on that. A little bit about my background. I started in the cannabis industry in 2012, represented a group called the Coalition for Responsible Patient Care. I actually created the group and represented them on advocating on medical marijuana regulations before the Mass Department of Public Health. We did some local representation of medical marijuana companies. I then had the opportunity to represent the Marijuana Policy Project and the Yes on 4 campaign, which was the legalization of cannabis here in Massachusetts. As you may know, the voters passed the ballot initiative, and then the next phase is to implement the law. And we were the lobbying firm that represented the Yes on 4 campaign for that implementation. So we've had a deep experience in public policy, and ever since 2017, we've been doing local representation of cannabis companies, much like the other my esteemed colleagues in the audience opened lots of businesses and lots of permits. And our company, just in the last 8 days, we've opened 3 retail stores on behalf of our clients. So we're very much ingrained of what the industry is doing every day here in Massachusetts. So that's a little bit about the team. And I'm going quick, so we will hopefully hit everything. So community engagement, we've heard a lot about this. I think the one thing that the Mitchells are very proud of is their longstanding history of having already done that in this community, both at the public service level, in the case of Kenny Sr., and at the local level with basketball teams, Kiwanis clubs, things like that. And so that's something that we're really proud of. So they're going to continue what they've been doing for decades in the community. And with cannabis, it's a little bit different in what you can and can't do. Certain you heard folks mention earlier, you can't always give money to certain organizations because of the cannabis tie-in. And so we really talked about in detail, and you have this in front of you, but we're looking at local organizations, nonprofits, local charities working with us. And that can mean a lot of different things. It typically goes beyond donations because of some of the challenges around that. And we highlighted a little bit of that in the PowerPoint for you to read. But days of service and other ways, and when we say other ways, is what we've found in engaging with the communities like the Kiwanis Club or like the South Shore Basketball is there's typically things that are important to them that don't just involve money that we can do as a cannabis company. And so that's why we take a very broad approach into how we engage with those local organizations. Commitment to hire local team members, something that we're certainly committed to do. Our goal is to have at least 50% Whitman residents working in the facility, much like you've heard. We'll have probably 20 to 30 employees. It's all about the same, so we'll keep moving. So we've established a goal of 50%. We've established a commitment to hire local vendors, contractors, and use of local businesses. I think the biggest demonstration of that, much like the community engagement that these folks have been engaged with here in Whitman and Hanson area for the last couple of decades, is our team of engineers and professionals are already Whitman businesses, Whitman residents. So we're putting our money where our mouth is and building our team very locally. And we will continue to do that. We kind of defined what good faith efforts meant to us. And we did that, and I won't take you through it, but we did that because sometimes that can be hard to define. And so we were really clear on how we wanted to achieve those goals. And it really, laid it out in there and for you guys to take a look at. But it's engaging directly with the local community for both job opportunities and local vendors. So, location 519 Auburn Street. You may have heard of this as the Toll House facility at one point. Interestingly here, Kenny Jr. owns this property, so this is already owned by the family, so we won't have any leasing or other issues to deal with. This is a property that they own. Many of you are familiar with it. There's a little bit of an overview aerial that you can see. And then this is the updated site plan that was just completed in November of this year by Carl Garvey. This is a little bit of what it looks like now. What we intend to do is expand the parking in the back, expanding that parking that comes in on the right-hand side and expanding that over. What we want to demonstrate to the board is what we have there today is suitable. The building's suitable. We intend to use the building as it sits from the exterior, so it would just be a cleanup of the exterior, making it more amenable, as well as the traffic. So when we did the traffic study, we said, what's sitting there today work? We know we can make it better, but we wanted to have some credibility in demonstrating that what we had today worked, and we'll work with the town and the chiefs and all that. We'll do all those things that the other companies will also do, I'm sure, to make it better, to include expanding the parking in the back. So that's something we anticipate as doing as part of the process. But we wanted to evaluate what was there today so the board could have an understanding of what that meant. This is the traffic assessment, and I apologize for not getting you the full report, but I will get that to Frank. We put the conclusion up front because this is generally what people are most interested in, and the bottom line is that overall the project is not anticipated to result in noticeable traffic impacts. Like you've heard tonight, 250 stores open, the traffic isn't what it was, a few years ago. And we had very similar traffic chip generation to what you'd heard previously tonight. So I think you're starting to see a lot of consistency in the industry and gives a lot of credibility to what these companies are doing. We did provide some of the supporting data for the board just so you had it in front of you as to how we got to our trip generation and ITE data and things like that. We also provided some sightline data just so, again, you had an understanding of how the existing site and the anticipated use blend into the area. And the bottom line is that it's a very appropriate siting from a traffic flow perspective. We understand that we'll do some site improvements as we go along the way. Much like you've heard throughout the night, the anticipated timeline is about 11 months, and that's probably what you're going to keep hearing is call it 10 to 12. And we all covered these steps, so I have the benefit of not having to take you through them all again, but they're the same steps you heard throughout the night. I think everybody here has a very clear understanding what we need to do. The host community agreement really is the starting point, so we left that as a TBD. We would say that from the issuance of that, just to give the board a pretty clear understanding, it's 10 to 12 months. We've opened a lot of these facilities. As I mentioned, we've opened 3 in the last 10 days, so we have a very clear understanding of the inspection requirements, the timing to get these done. We'll all move very quickly to get it done. I think one thing that the Mitchells have really demonstrated is we took the time to review the town's requirements for site plan and special permit, and we've already begun some of those steps to include the site work that you see in front of you, the traffic study that we also have already done. So in the areas that it's appropriate to lean forward, because we think it's an important part of the initial decision by the board, it also supports a faster timeline and faster execution post issuance of a host community agreement if we're fortunate enough to receive one. So that's a little bit of what that looks, and happy to take questions on it, but it's pretty consistent with what you heard. So in anticipation of running over, I'll leave it there. We did revenue projections. Ours are a little bit different, and I think the reason we did that is we also, similarly to what Valerio was getting into when he finished, is looked at the ITE data. So when we look at these stores, that's a national data. When we look at the IT data, and we're looking about, I think it was about 300 customers. So when you look at that, we think that ends up in that $8 million range, which is very similar to what you'd heard previously. But we're showing a ramp up to that over about a 3-year period. So that's what it looks like. The revenue projections, we did not include a community impact fee. We think that is too much of an open item. We didn't want to put that out there until that was fully understood. As everybody has said, the law just changed, and we're all kind of working through that. So we limited the financial impact to the town to the taxes, which we know you can get. Certainly, all the charitable things are all things that we would do above and beyond what would be required in the host community agreement. But we wanted to give a more conservative approach. Certainly, as the community impact fee becomes clearer, that would be additional revenue to the town potentially, and that's just, we thought, was a more conservative approach. All right, getting into security, you did hear a lot about this. I think we have a similar approach, but maybe slightly different enough that I'll take you through some of it. Security is an important part of this business because it's important to the community, it's important to the customers. One of the main, there were really 2 charges by the Cannabis Control Commission. One was to prevent diversion. Diversion means 2 things. One, to minors, certainly is the priority, but also to the illicit market, which may not necessarily be minors, right? And so that was one of the main charges of the Cannabis Control Commission, is to prevent diversion. And that's why we think, that's why everybody you've heard talk about security tonight, but why it's important, is really making sure we're doing that. And it really goes beyond just the physical security. I'm not going to get too far ahead of myself on the slides, but it goes into a lot of things that the company's doing. So when we talk about security at Mitchell Cannabis, we really talk about a total picture. So we have the physical security, which is essentially written in the regs. So the physical security of these facilities, man traps, cameras, all that are going to be nearly identical with very little deviation. I think where we focused was in rounding out that physical security with companies' policies, procedures, operating procedures. And so this is a list of the company's policies, all of which speak to security in one way or another. Security just being what it is, prevention of diversion of marijuana to minors in the illicit market. One of the biggest benefits for the town of Whitman in adopting adult use cannabis is that when we have adult use cannabis in facilities, it reduces the illicit market because they will just go to a town that doesn't have somewhere for people to legally go. So it really reduces the illicit market, the legacy market as it's come to be called. And what that does is that in and of itself, that action that the town took, reduces the accessibility to cannabis to minors. If we walked into the high school today and I said, does anybody here have a cannabis product? They might. But if I said, does anybody in here have a beer? Probably not. Because to get a legal beer is much more difficult than an illegal narcotic. And so I think the town taking that first step was incredible. And the steps that we're taking here in this company will continue to support that effort to prevent diversion of marijuana to minors. Restricting access to age 21 or older, retail dispensing procedures, personnel policies, which includes training, background checks, all those kinds of things, storage of cannabis, and then transportation. What we mean by transportation is cannabis coming to the business for the purposes of sale. So it's a very holistic approach that goes beyond just the physical security, which for the most part will be identical between these facilities. Diversion prevention, again, as I mentioned, this is probably one of the main charges for the CCC. It's diversion prevention and reducing the illicit market. That's if you listen back to the first meeting of CCC, that's what they talked about. And so we do that in what we call the SMART approach, which is separation, marketing, access control, reporting, and training. And am I getting close?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, this is my last slide. So I don't need to belabor this, but these are a lot of the things that you've already heard about tonight. We can come back to separation. I think that's an important one to understand. If the board wants to ask more about it, we'd be happy to talk about that. The rest of the items, quite frankly, are mostly governed by the regulations, so that we don't necessarily need to spend a lot of time on them. But separation, I think, is a good analogy that's worth understanding for the board if you want to come back to it. And our last slide, Mr. Chairman, is the community impact, which we spend a lot of time talking about. Not only the demonstrated performance of these three individuals up until this point, but how they'll continue to engage with the community in a partnership way. And we'll do that in the way we described previously, as well as with the security. And then the most important thing is the continued dialogue. Tonight really is the first night the town's talking about it in this way. And this conversation, in our view, will continue for a long time beyond opening the store. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your time. I hope I'm close.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. So what I would like to do now is, in the order of the presentations, have about a 5-minute Q&A with each company. Selectmen asking questions and just being as open and transparent as we can. Just caution board members, this is not the time to offer opinions on any particular presentation we had tonight. When on the 13th we will have full public deliberation, and that will be the time to offer opinions. So this is any direct questions regarding their presentation. We'll open it up.
Mr. Chairman, if I could kick it off. Thank you guys for coming back. I think the first and most obvious question would be the elephant in the room. Our bylaw authorizes the town to allow up to 3 recreational retail establishments. All 4 applicants are seeking recreational retail licenses. So if you were not one of the 3 applicants potentially offered a host community agreement by this board for recreational retail, I'm going to ask each company this, but would you be interested in pursuing one of the other allowable uses? So in Soulflower's case, the manufacturing, grow, and transportation separate from.
Yeah, I mean, the true value of being vertical in one location is having the dispensary as the backbone of introducing the product to your own clientele. So in our mind, the retail is the driver for all the other uses for that location.
I just have a quick question. I like the presentation, I like the business plan, but you said you had a couple of potential edits with the host community agreement.
Sure.
Have you been in communication with the other lawyers?
Yes, I sent a marked up copy to Town Council Sumner, and he confirmed receipt and had one quick question for me today, which I clarified. He was very kind to tell me in advance. He would not have been able to complete his review by tonight. Really the comments had to do with the very new law in the books. It took effect November 9th, so I can certainly forgive him for not, having that memorized at this point. The only reason I know it is because this is all I think about. I actually just gave a presentation to 80 attorneys through Mass Lawyers Weekly on this very topic. So there's tons of nooks and crannies. Again, as a former municipal attorney, I know he's got many other things that he's thinking about. But yeah, I'm committed to working with him. I think the statute's pretty clear. So just a minor polish based on the new law.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. What your presenting is the old brick building down by the T station, right? Are you going to use the entire building, or like you got the storefront where you have 2 used furniture places? That'll be gone, right?
Yeah, yep.
Right, and you'll use that, and then you have down the left side, down the back where they used to have the sign, the printing, and there's a big area there. I assume that would be for the growing.
That would actually be for manufacturing and transportation, and then we would glass probably the back wall to, as we talk to the board, we'd like to clean up Hopus Pond area and, obviously, under town law as vegetation, but open that up, or it'd be great for employees to be able to, because we're going to house marketing, IT, accounting, all our corporate businesses will be there. And then, so we would take probably the corner unit where the first used furniture place is, and then he's got 2,600 square feet behind him that he uses, and then we would put another wall and take another 2,500 square feet there, and we'd put our grow, so you'd actually be able to see the grow from the dispensary.
Is there any part of that building you will not be using?
Yep, we wouldn't take, the woodworker would stay,
Okay.
and then Whitman, whatever, the front building.
Company? Or,
is going to stay. So they both agreed, Jeff Walker agreed to let Whitman Company and the contractor to stay there, and we would take almost the rest of the
And you were
building.
talking about the old restaurant. You're talking about Sophie's?
Yeah, so we would be on that side.
Right, but you wouldn't be using that building?
No, I was just giving it as a reference point.
Okay. All right, that's good.
Okay. I just have a couple about the building. Have you guys signed any letter of intent
We have.
with Walker and Company?
Yes.
And this is really a question that I don't know legally. I don't know, I believe their plan is to do residence apartments. That's what I've heard. I haven't seen anything formally.
So the only state law buffer requirement that can't be changed by local bylaw, zoning bylaw, is the 500-foot buffer from a K through 12 public or private school. Whitman has the power through town meeting at 2/3 vote to have a warrant article get a new zoning bylaw approved, and that would have the power to set other sort of points that you measure against. As we said in our presentation, there aren't any of the sensitive areas listed in Whitman's bylaw that are anywhere within those distances.
But nothing from cannabis control that
No, just the schools is the only thing.
And when I was actually at the building today with the building, his architect, our architect, and rumor has they have no anticipation of the second floor at this time, other than just cleaning it up and cleaning up the property. But they have no. Right now, they have no decision on recreation, residential.
Cleanup leads me into my second question of, obviously that was a turn of the century manufacturing plant that does have possible contamination down there. Does that affect where you can manufacture and grow?
It affects where we can grow. So when we walked the space today, there was definitely certain spaces that, like the Whitman Company, we couldn't use their space because what they do. It's like harmful for that. There would be other places that has too much wood that would be hard for a clean environment. That's why, we picked the area that we were thinking is that it's really been used for mostly storage. But yeah, we're picking the locations based on the current uses.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, is he on?
No
Yeah.
questions?
Well, I can start with the same question. If not one of the three establishments to receive a host community agreement from this board, would you be interested in pursuing one of the other two licenses we could authorize, medical or non-retail recreational uses?
See, we just finished building a brand new vertical operation in the town of Berkeley, so it's we're pretty committed to the cultivation and product manufacturing in town of Berkeley. We partnered and made promises to them, and we want to just kind of honor our promises to the town.
If I recall, your bylaw would not allow cultivation on Route 18, right? It's off Route 18 in different areas. So we wouldn't be able to, someone would have to secure another location in those areas of town where it's located. Some of the things that we do offer is that we're also using Kyle Garvey as our engineer. We have the site plan has already been approved. That's how Ken Sweezy built the building. We would obviously submit the existing site plan to your zoning board, but it's already built out, so it's ready to go. The drainage is in, the lighting's in, the parking spaces are in and all. Obviously, they're well-financed. They've been vetted already, much as some of the others, by the CCC. So I hope the town has some confidence in some of the applicants you have here that everyone's going to be ready to go. In some ways, we don't need any variances from the zoning board with our site. So we're going to use all our efforts to kind of expedite to get open as quickly as possible for both the town's benefit, but also obviously for the business's benefit.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. One is, the area that you're looking at is like a strip mall, strip, right? Is there anything there now? Any businesses there now?
There's a sun tanning salon.
Okay, do you know how, so is the facility one of the ones that you want to use, one of the offices, storefronts, is it large enough for your use?
Oh, yeah.
And second of all, is that going to eliminate or hinder people from renting or and opening up a business there because of that? We don't know.
So we took two of the suites that Mr. Sweezy had, the N2 suites.
Okay.
So he already has the other two suites rented out. The nail and the tanning salon are rented out. So we felt that the one suite wasn't big enough. It was only 1,500 square feet. So we got a second one to be able to have adequate process flow, product flow, safety, security, to make sure that we were creating a good experience, a safe operating environment.
Okay.
So we have a 3,000 square foot space.
All right, and the company that wants to open up stores that wants to open up, they were talking about how it looked when they showed it. It looked like an old Apple, and then that in my head saying, the Apple store in Hingham, car ran into it. I could see that happening at Jamie's, and I could see that happening in your area if a car stops and goes right through the building.
Okay.
Right.
Tonight, we're going to keep questions.
We'll certainly address that with the zoning board.
My question is how would you secure the outside of the building for security?
Yep.
For that issue?
We would work with the landlord, obviously, with the owner, Kenny Sweezy, who is obviously well-known in the town. That's going to be part of the zoning review for all of the sites that would come up.
We'd look at, while still maintaining the look and feel of the town, we can look at bollards, different ways of protecting the storefront. We will have security glass that will not, it'll have a specialty 3M film that you could not, well, a car can kind of go through anything. But we would do things we'd work within the site we have to prevent anything from happening.
Just a quick question. The economic empowerment delivery, can you just explain that a little bit further?
Yeah, so we want to support other businesses besides ourselves. So we want to dedicate point of sales for those home delivery companies that are those economic empowerments. These adversely affected individuals that have a license to do home delivery, we want to give them dedicated space to be able to get their transactions done so that they can have faster delivery time, so they're able to be maximizing on their earning potential. So we don't want them to have to kind of go through our pre-order lines or our normal walk-in customer lines. We want to give them the opportunity to get in and out so that they can maximize their earning potential.
That makes sense.
Yeah. It's just a partnership. We're a community, this industry. It's not just one of us, it's all of us.
Yeah, I guess I just wasn't familiar with that would be happening.
Yeah, it's...
Because the delivery companies don't create their own product. Right. I mean, some companies would have a retail store and a delivery pod, but some delivery companies are just delivery companies only. So they go and, they purchase, get the product, and then they'll deliver it. So he's just trying to help expedite it so they're not slowing down their business. And I know this board recently passed, your desires to try to help the social equity, and that would be a means that we could contribute to that.
And my question would be the same thing. Have you secured a letter of intent or an agreement already with Mr. Sweezy? That,
Yes.
and why I'm asking this question is obviously, when we do vote, I would hate to see this go back to.
We have a long-term lease with Mr. Sweezy, already been signed. We've already been in the building. We're just not allowed to start building it until host community agreement is step one.
I had to give him drain location so he could do his floor. So yeah, I've worked with Mr. Sweezy's other friends in my other project that we use all local vendors also. My builder has built over a dozen grows and dispensaries in the area, so they all kind of, that's how I met Ken Sweezy, from his golfing buddy.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, and I have to say, I promised one friend of mine that I would say congratulations to Whitman Hanson on your Thanksgiving Day victory.
It hurt, didn't it, Sean?
Okay.
Mary was thrilled. She was in the band for that.
Yeah, so same question for you. If not one of the 3 recreational retail establishments, would you seek one of the other licenses we could grant under the?
So for a couple of reasons, probably not. One is we're currently working on, we have special permit and a provisional license for a cultivation and product manufacturing facility in Athol through UMA, our sister company. But the other reason is cultivation and product manufacturing isn't really an appropriate use for that building. It's in your sort of commercial district right there. It's not, so we wouldn't put it there. It's just not the right use from a zoning perspective.
You have a unique business plan. Do you have a model business that you could reference that has a similar business plan? You could maybe research
In terms of a retail dispensary or in terms of the brand?
the brand and like your unique way of like finding people that are.
Yeah, no, that's organic. That's a little bit that sets us apart from other retail companies. That brand concept about identifying individuals who are trying to come in, but because of the hurdles of opening one of these up, the thought process is to identify them, work with them, create products that are white labeled and sold, and then share some of those profits, and then teach them if they want to open up a dispensary of their own. But no, that's something that's unique to us.
And these are some individuals who have been adversely affected by this in the past?
It's for any individual who's driven and wants to be part of this legal industry, but is having a hard time navigating it. Again, my family is I went into medical school and I have a science background and a medical background, but my family is small business operators. They're convenience store owners. So I understand how difficult and what it takes to run one of these. Nothing is as complicated as this industry in terms of getting up and running. So with every state trying to put in social equity rules, it's great, but in practice it's not feasible. So that's when I thought that this would be a win-win situation where you're creating products for people, getting them real money into their pockets, and then also giving them guidance for future business endeavors of their own.
And Story's actually, through the Supplier Diversity Office, is applying to be a minority-owned business as well. It's just that the process by which it happens, we're not quite far enough in the process, but they are. And the sister UMA company is a woman-owned business and a minority-owned business as well. So, yeah, there's lots of reasons why it's an element of it. But it's really Davis's brainchild. I haven't heard of another business doing it.
One more quick question. The manager who's going to be operating this business is not going to be you?
No, so I love that you brought that up. So if you know, it was a small part, but it's a part-time hospitalist at Brown right now. And the reason why it's even part-time is because of this endeavor. I made the switch from full-time to part-time because I'm passionate about this business. And when it's time to dedicate more hours, I hope, if we're awarded a license and we're working towards opening, especially the early days, I'm going to be the person, the point of contact. I'll be the general manager. I'll be all of it until there's a good team in place, and hopefully it's locally sourced. And that's why Scott's on the team to really help bring that local component to it. But no, I am the owner, operator, manager, all of it. Yeah.
And the board and police will have Davis's cell phone number. I mean, he's,
Yeah, purposefully chose to be a hospitalist because of that flexibility. I've always had sort of interest in both medicine and the business world because of my family background, that entrepreneurial spirit. So, no, I really am the person who'll be here. It's just not an ownership stance.
Thank you.
I would have asked the same question, but I did see it here in the packet that you do have, obviously you don't own the building.
We have a purchase and sale executed, so we have an exclusive right to purchase the building.
So that would be all I'd have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to the board.
All right.
Long time no see. Thanks.
And yeah, same question for you guys. If not one of the three recreational retail host community agreements we can sign, would you be interested in pursuing one of the other, perhaps medicinal? Your location may not be best for growing or manufacturing, but
Right, that's the challenge here. We have a similar challenge. So even in the medicinal license, under the state law, you're required to be vertically integrated. So you'd have to have cultivation, manufacturing, and dispensing under that one license type to operate. So we're faced with the same challenges. So there's with these guys participating, living here, growing up here, and being part of the community, owning businesses here, they're committed to being in Whitman and doing something here. I think one of the unique opportunities in working with the Mitchells is because they'll have their social equity status from the CCC. Should the town adopt delivery later, there's a strong interest in them participating in that, and they would be eligible to do that as a social equity applicant. Right now, no one can do it unless you are a social equity applicant. So I think there's some future growth potentials with the Mitchells being part of as the town continues to evolve. I think it's an important thing for the town to consider because deliveries can occur here, but you don't receive any tax benefit. If deliveries leave from here, you receive the tax benefit of anywhere they're delivered. So it's another conversation for the town, but that's something that the Mitchells would be able to participate in. So I think they're committed to be part of the cannabis industry here in Whitman, but for the same reasons as others, it just wouldn't be suitable at that location.
I thought you said we opened 3.
Yeah.
But did you mean like you guys also have another?
No, my company.
Your company.
Yeah, I was just talking about my background.
But you don't have another business.
Yeah, not opened. No.
All right. Just to make sure, I wouldn't ask that question because you've already said you own the property. Just to make sure I'm reading this right, are these 2 residential homes?
They are, and I appreciate you bringing that up. So Kenny himself actually walked over there and met with the neighbors on your left, my right. We didn't actually connect with the other folks, but those folks closest to us are in support of what we're proposing. Yeah. So we already met with them prior to applying to the town. Before we ever came to the town at all, we went to them first.
And do you know if this house is on the historical register?
It is not.
No, it's not. Okay.
Good question.
For parking, the greened area in the back, will you plan on making that into parking?
Yeah, we would. That's where we'd expand. Exactly.
What about in the front?
No, the plan would be to. So what we worked with the civil engineers, the plan we would use that for kind of stormwater management, discharge, still keeping kind of look and feel from the street, and put the business aspect of it in the back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, is that it? Okay, great. Thank you all.
Hey, Kenny, you miss it?
I don't.
All right. Just gather up my paperwork. All right. So, as we've said, on the 13th, we will deliberate and vote. If you want to send one member, how many of you want to come back? But if you want, I can give everyone some time to clear the room if you want to leave, and then we'll resume the rest of the meeting.
Thank you for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
See the chief.
Yeah, this is president.
I am gonna do, yeah, you're all set. What do we have left?
Okay, moving on to new business.
Budget?
Yes, FY24 budget. Mr. Kane, Mr. Lineham, and Ken Littell have been diligently working on this, and just a brief update tonight.
Shut the door.
Want me to talk?
Yeah. I don't have to cough through it.
Maybe it'd be helpful to give a kind of a quick general overview of kind of some of the things that we have identified, because this isn't, it's not going to be the easiest conversation, but it's certainly necessary. So we started the budget working group, a couple months ago, so we could identify, proactively where we're at before we go into the budget season. Having a financial forecast is part of the strategic plan, and we want to start to formalize that process. The school's been doing similar things. They've run like a simulation for their forecast, and it's been helpful for us to work together. So quickly, just given like a general overview of I'll start with the revenue first. When we're looking at the revenue, really, if we look at the current tax levy and we add 2.5% to the current tax levy, that's a little over $700,000. And then if we add new growth, that's a little bit over $350,000 to $380,000. So we're talking about new revenue of about a little over $1 million. And then we went and looked at some of the other revenue that we have, things like meals tax and excise tax and the lottery and things like that, ambulance receipts. But our current financial policy says that we should, and I agree with it, we should be kind of conservative about those projections. So the current revenue, but we're looking to be relatively conservative, especially given the economic times, about how much we can realistically depend on or expect from those things in FY24. So we were somewhat conservative with that. So basically, in a nutshell, we have a little bit over $1 million to work with in new revenue in FY24. We then ran a simulation with Article 2, and Ken did a really good job with this, running just basic assumptions, he's pretty detailed, looking at like steps and lanes, given conservative like 2% cost of living for department heads, kind of the typical status quo this year to next year, and what would Article 2 look like. Then we got down to the schools. The schools right now, and remember this is real preliminary, but their preliminary projection was a little bit over 6%. So their little bit over 6% is about a little over $1 million. So with their preliminary, remember this is a projection, but their projection is 1.4%. That's about equal to all the revenue that we would receive from the 2.5% and the new growth. So what we did with our simulation, we also ran the 5%, because it's a general watermark on what the schools would, if we funded the schools at 5%, generally speaking, working with the financial analyst, Madden, a couple of years ago, he said, roughly speaking, that'll get you to level service for the town and the schools without an override. You go over 5%, you're likely looking at an override. So we also ran the 5% simulation, and that's $850,000 if the school's at 5%. Well, if all things being equal, if that's how Article 2 ended there, 5% would be roughly a balanced budget if we funded the schools roughly at 5%. But there's one particular line that's kind of killing us. And Frank can probably speak to this in more detail, but if you go all the way down to the bottom of Article 2 and you're looking at the Plymouth County retirement. Plymouth County retirement, we thought it was going to be about 8%, or hoping for 4%. got some initial information where we thought it was going to be 8%, and then just recently, just in the last couple weeks, they came back at potentially 17%. So to give some perspective on that, 17% from the Plymouth County retirement is about, it's a little bit over $400,000. So that's a big chunk of change. So at 4%, which we were hoping for, is manageable. 8% was really pushing the limits, really pushing the limits, because that's like $200,000. 17% is over $400,000. So that particular budget line is
It's actually $457,000.
457. So it's definitely a line that we're really concerned about. So that's not great news for it's like FY24 budget. One thing that's not in that calculation is some of the potential revenue from the marijuana stores. Likely wouldn't show up too much in FY24, maybe the tail end of 24, but certainly moving forward, we could expect a little, obviously more revenue from that. That's not captured on our projections right now. So when we're just looking at FY24, I feel like there's kind of three options. Maybe this is a bit beyond, but this is where my thoughts are going just in our initial discussion is we could hold firm to our financial policy and make up that gap through efficiencies and budget cuts.
Sorry.
The second option, I think, is we could potentially use some one-time funds to bridge that gap, which is against our financial policy.
Right, yeah.
That would potentially bridge us to maybe a year or so until we are capturing some of that revenue from the marijuana industry. Or we could potentially look at an override.
I note that we've been dancing around this thing for 5 years. I remember getting up in 2018 at our annual town meeting and talking about the fact that we could not outrun the expenses that we were incurring, particularly in education. And the policy that we adopted, or recommendations that we acknowledged from Mr. Madden, included an assumption that our assessments would not go up more than 5%. Unfortunately, in a regional system, you don't have that control. Now, the likelihood that if we attempted to impose some type of limit, that Hanson would oppose it is unlikely, but we also have to think about the impact it has on the schools and on our offerings. I mean, there are so many things that are up in the air right now at the schools. One of the hot buttons, I think, is the starting time. And if that changes, that's going to have a significant financial impact. So, this is the time to really start thinking about what do we want our future to look like.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, I have a question while we're there. So the Plymouth County retirement assessment increases, we're looking at about 17%. The schools have substantially more employees than the town does. Would they also be seeing a 17%
Well,
assessment
they're
from
certainly
Plymouth County?
included in that. I can.
A portion of it. Yeah.
It's likely that they're going to have a similar impact.
So, yeah, as a regional district, they're paying their own employees retirement benefits, so that would also get assessed to us indirectly.
So, now I'm going to quote a line from probably my favorite movie. You yell Barracuda, everyone says how, what? You yell shark, and it's a panic on the 4th of July. Talking about overrides in November, when no money has been finalized, the school budget has been set, and we're talking about overrides. it's far too preliminary. I mean, I didn't think that was what we were going to start discussing tonight. And now this is out there. When you start talking about overrides to people and you get that panic based off running speculation, I would say that your $1 million that the school wanted was extremely light because the 5-year forecast I looked at was 1.4 million, and that's not taking in consideration of the retirement increase. That being said, and I didn't want to have to do this early. I stood in a school committee meeting and told the superintendent last year what he was doing was reckless. They know what they did. They took one-time money and they put it into recurring cost programs. I will not see a single member of this town get laid off because of poor decision-making. That was reckless. You know it, Sean. You agreed with it then. Mr. Galvin, who's about to speak, I'm sure will say he agreed with it because he was up there saying the same thing. So to now put every department head coming to work tomorrow thinking that we're going to have budget cuts. Well, if we're going to just stick by Madden, we don't use one-time money for recurring cost programs anymore. They shouldn't have done it. They did it. So if they're going to seek an override, then it should be on them to do it.
I absolutely agree.
Yep, I agree.
I mean, John, I thought we were going to talk about, some rough numbers. I mean, when you're talking about running, we don't know yet. And that's why year after year we say...
Do you mind if I respond?
When I finish speaking, then I'll acknowledge you. And this is why we don't do this. Because it causes panic, it's unknown, it's so variable between now and the first of the year that you're dealing with complete speculation. Mr. King.
I think the reason why this year is different, and I do respectfully disagree, is because the school has engaged in a lot of work to put their budget forecast public and to make it public. In the same way, we were mirroring that so that it's speculation as far as we haven't heard what department heads need yet, and I think there's going to be some big asks as far as, the things that they're going to need in FY24. But there are certain things that we can mathematically compute right now. If we run a scenario that is status quo, level service, we can come out with a forecast. That's why we have it as part of our strategic plan. When you run those numbers that aren't just speculation, because if we had no idea what the schools were going to ask, then it is a lot of speculation. But right now we do have a ballpark. If we have a ballpark from them and we can run a simulation, then we can get a ballpark and we can communicate back and forth. Because before, what would happen is department heads wouldn't have any idea or would have much less of an idea of a forecast. So we were seeing wish lists come in. Now with the forecast, the benefit of a forecast is you can be proactive. You can have conversations in the late fall that before were happening maybe in the late spring, just before town meeting. So I do respectfully disagree. I think this is I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we should have an override. I'm saying is what we're seeing right now is our budget, our FY24 budget and our initial projections is not balanced. And it's not like $50,000, it's fairly significant. We're talking about over $400,000, and that's with numbers that are relatively stable. So I don't see how it's going to go down.
So year after, this budget year isn't different. I mean, the gentleman to my right, I think, have over 30 years combined in these seats. I make it 36.
He's saying we're old.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there has been years like this.
Oh, yeah.
And what have we seen time after time? When the cake is made, that's what you have to eat, and you start dividing it out. But that being said, and I want to key on this point, and I really hope this gets in the Express, we are going to take in slightly over $1 million. Now, you are praising the school's 5-year forecast, okay? We are going to take in slightly over $1 million. They have already projected 1.4, doesn't include the retirement increase, and they're talking about adding, Sean. They're not sitting here back wondering, how are we going to pay for this? It was reckless last year, and I knew this. When I said that in that comment, I took a lot of heat from people, but I knew it was going to happen. I really didn't want to have to say this tonight. Mr. Galvin, you've been patiently waiting.
John Galvin, High Street. I was at the school budget subcommittee tonight. They released another preliminary forecast. Unfortunately, I'm sorry I left it in the car, but I will email it all to you tomorrow. It wasn't much different than what they had back in June, a little tighter, I think. The good thing, I think, that was discussed at this meeting tonight, that the superintendent plans sometime in December to come out with as he discussed with you at your last meeting, to have a preliminary look at the budget. It's basically going to be expenditures. Discussion tonight at that meeting was that the revenue forecast is going to be difficult because of the new governor. The governor's budget won't come out until March 1st. They were told today. So all of that information through February, we won't have the governor's budget, so we won't actually know the Chapter 70 numbers. Mr. Evans was in the Hold Harmless meeting with me last week. The formula is changing pretty significantly. That was part of the discussion tonight. In the past, they've used, the last 2 years, they used fiscal 20 property evaluations. This year, they're switching to fiscal 22. That will drive up our required contribution. That was part of the discussions tonight. They're using fiscal 22 property value and fiscal 20 income values, and that's how DESI works. So that could drive up our required contribution. There was some numbers thrown around that I will email you guys in this morning or tonight when I get home about what our possible required contribution was. It was, significant increase. I think the school is trying to make an effort to come forward, so hopefully we do have an idea sooner than later. But again, because the governor's budget's not going to come out till March 1st, even when they have their February public hearing on the budget, they won't have Chapter 70 numbers. So I really don't know how they're going to do that and have a public hearing and talk about, they can talk about expenditures. And I think they've got a better handle on that now. So, we'll know what level service is for them. And I unfortunately agree with Mr. Lamatina that it's going to be more than what we actually take in a year, and the projected revenue of $1 million. And I think this year it was maybe $1.2 million in new revenue, Mr. Lynham, I think he ended up with. So hopefully we can, maybe squeak out a little bit more of that. But, I think the school is willing to communicate with us. Hopefully we can move forward and figure it out.
So we're going to end this discussion on this point. What's that?
Good idea.
I'm looking at department heads in the back of the room right now. And the school district thinks it's okay to take every single dollar. And where else do we have residents asking for sidewalk repairs. We have residents asking for a litany of things. Oh, we can't do that. We can't service you unless you want to keep paying. But once we get some more money, it gets spent. It may sound like a haphazard attitude, but I knew it was going to happen last year, Sean. So we're going to just move on. Old business, follow-up on adult participant release waiver liability indemnity agreement.
That was the proposal by Maya to suggest and recommend that the volunteers for various functions in the town sign a waiver which protects the town from suit. The principle and concept behind that, as I understand it from Maya, is that these are not regular employees. We don't insure them through Maya. We're not covered by our policy. And if people who are working in it's a quasi-volunteer program. I mean, they're getting a financial benefit of a reduction in taxes, but for that volunteer program, they wouldn't be in the workplace, and that's their argument for saying that this disproportionately increases your risk. I do understand that there were some concerns voiced about how that would affect the program and whether it's fair to ask volunteers to sign a waiver, but essentially you do that whenever you run programs in the park or whenever you hold outside events. So it's something of a practicality for our insurer. I don't have any stats. They didn't have any to give me. But this is their risk management advice. So.
I have a question, Frank. In the summer program at the pool, a parent signs their child up for swimming. Child slips and falls because it's wet. Is he covered by our insurance?
You cannot insulate yourself from identifiable risk. If the conditions are such that your actions caused the injury, then you're liable. There isn't even a question about it. And I don't think it's slip and fall so much. It's people can injure themselves traveling into a building, walking in a building, filing. You know, they're all things that are potential risk.
Slightly confused. This would be for a volunteer acting in capacity representing a representative for the town?
I don't know that you would call that person a representative for the town. It's a person volunteering to do some type of service for the town. But they don't necessarily mean they're representing us. I mean, you have all kinds of volunteers.
Same about senior workers.
Yeah, senior workers, they get members of the rec committee that may assist on various events. Okay. Do you need a vote on this, Frank, to adopt it, or?
I don't know if the board's ready to move on it.
No. Like we'll say the election workers, they get paid for working the election, right?
They're not volunteers.
They're not volunteers, but then you have people that will work the library to get X amount of money off their taxes.
Right.
Those aren't volunteers?
That is defined as a volunteer program.
Okay. If they're going to the library and slipping,
credit for doing that work.
right? But if they slip and fall and break a leg, going to the library, their shift, they're not covered.
It would be under their own insurance as opposed to workers' comp.
All right, so
It's a touchy issue.
we'll move on and take this up the next meeting.
Okay. I'll see if I can get any more information.
Interim town administrator's report. Do you have anything, Frank?
I already covered that earlier, so no, I don't have anything.
Okay. At this time, we're going to be moving into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, subsection A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body and the chair, as the chair so declares. Tonight we'll be going over two issues, AFSCME, AFL-CIO, Council 93, Local 1700 DPW, and OPIU, Local 6, which is the Town Hall unit. Once we exit executive session, we will be adjourning.
I'll make that motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Yes.
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 Yes. And I will vote yes. We are in executive session.